Good evening. Welcome to this evening's special edition of Tavern Tastings. My name is Rhonda Hill, and I'm the president of the board of directors of Keeler Tavern Museum and History Center. I want to thank you for participating in our Gala-to-Go 2021. Your contributions are very impactful, as it is only with your help that we are able to continue in our mission of sharing history and its relevance and maintaining and preserving our 300-plus-year-old campus. I know you will enjoy Catherine Prescott's Tavern Tastings. She does a great job of researching what would have been served here at Keeler Tavern back in the day, and she always has fun facts to share. The evening's presentation will conclude with Catherine's drawing of raffle tickets so that 2 lucky people will become the owners of some Susan Scala pottery. Let me get a head start this evening on the activities by raising a glass to you all, and thank you again for your support.
All right, thank you, Rhonda, and thank you everyone for joining us tonight for our special edition of Tavern Tastings. I'm really excited to be able to bring this to you. This is a series that we started last fall, and we've had some really great experiences doing these virtual tavern tastings, and I'm really excited to be able to bring you a very special edition of Tavern Tastings all about cocktails. So cocktails are not strictly 18th century, so you probably won't find them here at Timothy's Tavern, but as you'll see, they are rooted in what is served at Timothy's Tavern. So as Rhonda said, I'm Catherine Prescott, and I'm the chief curator here at Keeler Tavern Museum and History Center. And I am here sitting in the tap room of the Keeler Tavern. And you can see off to my left is the original tavern sign. And I'm sitting where the bar would have been. So imagine Timothy or Esther standing here behind the bar, serving the people of Ridgefield. So our featured drink tonight, which you should have all received the recipe, so I hope you will try it as well, is a gin daisy. And so with the gin daisy, we are going to actually fast forward into the early 20th century when Keeler Tavern was owned by the famous architect Cass Gilbert. And so our gin daisy first appears around the 1860s in a novel called The Gay Life in New York. And it was just mentioned as a daisy, as like a drink. And then we believe it was first made kind of in real life in 1873 when a man walked into Fred Eberlein's bar in Lower Manhattan, right around the corner from the New York Stock Exchange, called out a bunch of ingredients to the bartender, Fred, and when he sipped the drink that was placed in front of him, he cried out, "By George, that's a daisy." And that's how this drink got its name. So the daisy was essentially a whiskey sour. It was made with whiskey, orange liqueur, and a dash of soda, club soda. And it was very popular with the bankers on Wall Street for about a decade. And then it went out of fashion. And then in the 1890s, it had evolved to use gin rather than whiskey and raspberry syrup or grenadine, which gave it a really nice pink color. And just a little bit more seltzer water to give it a little bit of fizz for excitement. And this new school daisy, as it was called, was a dude's drink. And now at the turn of the 20th century, a dude was a young man of leisure, very fashionable, very concerned with how he looked, a dandy, or he might be called a city slicker. So these dudes very much enjoyed their daisies, especially when they were at their Westchester golf clubs. And Cass Gilbert, we know, was a very avid golfer, and he frequented some of these Westchester golf clubs. So I'm sure he enjoyed a daisy or two in his time. So I'm going to demonstrate the daisy here. So we're going to start with a small bar glass. It's a short drink. And then I have to get around here to my garnishes. So we're going to take some citrus. So I have a quarter of a lemon, excuse me. I have a quarter of a lemon and half of a lime. So remember, I said this drink started out its life as an interpretation on the whiskey sour. So that's why we have a lot of citrus here. And then I'm going to take some sugar to cut that citrus. So I have about a teaspoon of sugar here, and I'm just going to mix that in and dissolve it in the lime juice a little bit. And then for our pink color, I'm going to take some grenadine. So this grenadine I just made, it's equal parts pomegranate juice and sugar, and you just seal it up and shake it until all the sugar is dissolved. It's a really easy way to make some nice grenadine. So I'll take about a teaspoon of that. All right. And now for our star ingredient, the gin. And our party favor this evening is our lovely shot glasses. And this was a specially designed recipe. So you need 1 shot glass, 1 Keeler shot glass of gin. So I'll pour that in. And then for a little bit of excitement here, I'm going to take some seltzer. And you need just a little bit of seltzer to give it some fizz. And then finally, we're going to top it up with ice. So I'm going to put in my ice here. And then the very last thing we want to do is garnish. And the thing with the gin daisy is we are going to use all of the sweets available on our garnish plate here. So I've got some raspberries that I'm gonna stick in here. And I've got some mint as well. So that'll make it really nice here. And the absolute last thing is you do need a straw, because remember, these are dudes drinking it. They've got very nice facial hair. You can't sip from your glass. So you're gonna use a straw. And that's your gin daisy. So I hope you all get a chance to try it and have a little cocktail with us as we talk about the history of cocktails and how we got from the 18th century all the way up to today. Now, before I move away from the daisy, I do want to say that the daisy was popular among these dudes and dandies at their golf clubs until about Prohibition. And then at Prohibition in the United States, cocktail making pretty much just fell off a cliff, at least publicly for obvious reasons. But the daisy was preserved down in Mexico. Near Tijuana, there was a very famous golf resort that these dandies would go down and play golf and gamble down there. And if you speak a Romance language, you may already have guessed where this is leading. But an old school daisy that used lime juice, orange liqueur, and the local Mexican spirit, which is tequila, you may recognize as a margarita, which in Spanish is the word for daisy. And so once Prohibition ended and these drinks were coming back, the margarita came back up from Mexico and is now a very popular drink, again, among people today. So the daisy is preserved now in the margarita. So now that we do have our cocktails, we're gonna go back again in time to the 18th century when this space was Timothy's Tap Room, and talk about the origin of cocktails as we know it today. And so back in the 18th century, Americans were drinking a lot of alcohol, beer, cider, wine, and various spirits, rum, whiskey, gin, basically anything you could ferment and distill, Americans would try it. So they were drinking all these spirits, but they're not as smooth as today. You would not want to sip 18th century gin or whiskey straight. The 18th century Americans really did create a whole slew of mixed drinks just to make their alcohol palatable. And by far the most popular mixed drink was punch. So punch is composed of 5 basic ingredients. And this is actually one of the theories of where the name punch came from. So punch is alcohol, usually rum, water, sugar, citrus, and spices. And this was a concoction that was invented by British sailors out in India and Southeast Asia as a way to make the local palm wine drinkable to the British palate. And in Hindi, the word for 5 is paunch, which is where we believe we get the word punch from, for those 5 ingredients. So British sailors invent punch and they bring it around the world as part of British empire building. And punch is really emblematic of this whole period of imperialism and the expansion of global trade, because all of the ingredients are essentially imported into England. You get rum from the Caribbean, as well as sugar. Your citrus is coming from the Mediterranean, and spices from Southeast Asia. So participating in punch drinking really shows that there's like an element of social posturing to it. You know, you're showing that you're a participant in the global market. You have the means and the clout to acquire these exotic ingredients. And so punch was very popular here in America as well. And we don't know that Timothy was serving punch here at Keeler Tavern specifically, but we do know he had access to all of the ingredients needed for punch. So I don't think it's that far of a leap to believe that he was serving punch. And punch is a very social drink. So in the 18th century, punch was served in bowls. And I'm using my punch bowl as an ice bowl tonight, but this would be an 18th century punch bowl. Your punch would be mixed in here, and when I say you, I mean a group of men in the 18th century, would pass the bowl around and all drink from the same bowl. And it's very social in that way. And it's a symbol of congeniality and fellowship to participate in one of these punch parties. And so I am going to show you a couple of pictures here, just show you how raucous kind of punch parties could get. So here we have probably one of the best known depictions of 18th century punch drinking. This is a piece of art called Sea Captains Carousing in Suriname. And so you see all of these gentlemen, sea captains here in this tavern drinking punch, and you've got this gentleman drinking out of the bowl. Right in the center, in the background, you have some fellow pouring punch on one of his fellow party goers. And as I said, punch really is emblematic of this global trade and global market. And part of that does involve slavery. You know, a lot of these ingredients do come from plantations where it's being produced by enslaved people. And you do see that in this photo as well. You have a person of color, an Afro-Caribbean here in the back serving punch, and you have another figure up front who's also acting as sort of a servant. So that is a factor in punch and in a lot of the various aspects of history from the 18th and 19th century. But as the 18th century went on, increasing bowl sizes meant that it was harder to pass the bowl around the table. And there were also changing ideas of personal space and what it meant to actually like share the same drinking vessel with somebody. And so this leads to the use of ladles and individual glasses in drinking punch. And once we get to individual glasses, you start allowing women to participate in the social nature of punch drinking because it's more refined now. You know, it's no longer the sort of, I equate it to like a frat party, you know. So now we have individual glasses, and you see these three women here. You do have our host on the left with her punch bowl, but the two guests are drinking their punch out of individual glasses here. So, so we're here at Punch, and as I mentioned, Timothy Keeler likely would have served punch at his tavern, though we don't know for sure. I can't say 100% that he was serving punch. So punch may have been invented by the British, but Americans turned the mixing of punch into an art form. So in the early 1800s, foreign visitors to this new country called America had very little to recommend it to their fellow Europeans outside of big cities. And even those were kind of questionable. So to European eyes, Americans had no great scientific discoveries, no literary or artistic masterpieces, but we did have one thing that was probably better than all of the above. And we had a talent for mixing punch. So nearly all of the cocktails that are served today that we consider cocktails in our modern parlance, with very few exceptions, descend from punch. So in the first quarter of the 19th century, bartenders start to experiment with variations on punch, changing the different spirits used, different combinations. Maybe you don't have some of the spices, so you leave those out. Maybe you have extra lemons that are about to go bad, so you add some extra. So here we start to get some experimentation. And we're also starting to get this idea in America of wanting made to order things. You know, you want an individual drink that's made to order by your bartender. And so the first kind of offspring from punch, our first, what we might term cocktails today, is what's called the sling, which is spirits, sugar, water, or punch when you don't have lemons. And we do know that sling was served here at the tavern in the 18th century. So I'm going to show this next slide. So these are images of documents from the Keeler Tavern archives here. So on the two larger photos are out of one of Timothy Keeler's ledger books. And you can see on the bottom photo here is a record of a bill sent to the town of Ridgefield for a group of surveyors who came to dine at Keeler Tavern. And one of the things, I apologize, it is very hard to see, the font, the ink was fading, but you'll see here he has a brandy sling. So this would be brandy, water, and sugar, and a mixed together. So we do know that Timothy was serving sling. And the other cocktail at Keeler Tavern would have been what's called a bittered sling. So bitters are kind of arable, aromatic infusions that were used in the 18th century as preventative medicine. So it was believed that the bitterness actually helped fight sickness. So a lot of medicines in the 18th century were very bitter flavored. And so bitters was something you drank in the morning, kind of when you got up, you had a glass of bitters, or a small, a very small kind of shot glass of bitters to perk you up and help ward off any illness that might be developing. And so you can see here, we have a glass of bitters for 3 pence in the 1800s. And then these two smaller images are tavern bills from 1819, which is when Timothy's son William was running the tavern, or he called it a hotel, but it was the tavern. So William was also serving these slings and bitters. And when you put bitters into a sling, you get a bittered sling, which was more commonly called a cocktail. So I've been using the term cocktail, and in the 21st century, we generally use the term cocktail to refer to any sort of mixed drink that has at least one or more different alcoholic spirits in it. But in the 18th century, cocktail was a very specific drink that had to include bitters in it. And I do think that the evolution of this term cocktail from a very specific drink with bitters in it to where it is now, where it's all types of mixed drinks, kind of evolved as a bit of a joke to justify a morning drink. You know, you claim it's a cocktail, it's medicinal, it's no problem. So that's kind of how we get cocktail kind of broadens its reach there. So as I mentioned, all these cocktails fall from punch. And by the 1830s, we see an absolute transformation in the world of mixed drinks. And so I'm going to show this little family tree I made here. So this is, you can see where all the different drinks that we might see how they descend from punch. So you see sling, which is punch minus citrus, and then from a sling, you get various different drinks that we might be familiar with today. So today is also the Kentucky Derby. I didn't realize that until this afternoon, but the mint julep is the drink of the Kentucky Derby, and a julep is essentially a sling plus mint. And if you reduce the amount of mixer in your julep and you make a short drink, then you've got a smash. And then over on the other side of this family tree, you can see the line of descent until we get to daisies. So you have punch, and then you move to sour, and then add some fizz to it, and you get the fizz. Then you add some cordial, like the grenadine, and you get a daisy. And then from daisy, we get to our margarita as well. So here's our family tree of mixed drinks. You can see how everything descends out of this one king of 18th century beverages, punch. So this broadening of our world of mixed drinks happens about the 1830s. And this transformation is brought about by pretty much one man. And his name was Frederick Tudor, and he was the ice king of Boston. So he developed a commercial ice trade and essentially managed to bring New England ice out of our lovely New England ponds here to the entire world at any time of the year. So starting in the 1830s, you could access ice any time of year, no matter where you are in the world. And this absolutely transformed the mixed drink. So by the mid 18th century, just about every drink that's not made with boiling water is gonna have ice in it. And with this ice comes a brand new way of making mixed drinks. So in the 18th century and early 19th century, your bartender is really just a server, right? He's just there to mix up your drink and give it to you, and you enjoy it on your own. But once we get ice, the bartender his job transforms as well, and he becomes a performer, right? Because now you can use the ice to mix your drink, and you're gonna take glasses and, toss drinks back and forth between glasses and do all sorts of crazy, mixing and really make it into an art form. So we have a transformation in the world of mixed drinks. And by the 1850s, a bartender could have a menu of kind of several dozen different types of drinks in a bar. So there was a saloon in Washington, D.C. that in 1856 had a menu of 83 different types of drinks. So I can't imagine having to remember all of those different drinks. And the 1850s is also when the term mixologist, to refer to this bartender performer, was invented as well. So I always thought mixologist was a very modern term, but it is in fact over 150 years old. Now, of course, Prohibition in 1919 led to the abrupt halt of a lot of the cocktail mixing in the United States, at least publicly. We do know people were allowed to drink alcohol that they had already purchased. And Cass Gilbert was very against Prohibition. And so when he, just before Prohibition went into effect, he purchased over 400 bottles of alcohol. And this is the receipt from that purchase just before the Prohibition went into effect. And you can see here, he's buying all sorts of things. He's got rum, he's got gin, various wines, port, bourbon, all sherry, just about everything. And I think he was hoping that maybe the country would come to its senses sooner rather than later, and that he could outlast this great experiment with his 400 plus bottles of wine or alcohol. But unfortunately, we did not come to our senses soon enough. And as far as we know, Gilbert did get through most of this. He was, there's a record of him actually calling the Prohibition office to inquire about the rules for moving alcohol purchased prior to Prohibition. So I think he probably wanted to bring some of these bottles maybe up here to Ridgefield to enjoy while he's spending his time here at the Keeler Tavern, or the Cannonball House, as it were. So that is our very quick tour through the history of cocktails. And I hope that you enjoyed it and you learned a little bit about where our all these drinks that we call cocktails come from. And I think now I think we're at the half hour. So I'm going to move into our raffle. So we have two very beautiful pieces by Susan Scala that we're raffling off tonight. So our first piece is this lovely platter by Susan, hand painted. So that's our first prize, and I've got all our tickets here. So thank you to everybody who purchased raffle tickets. We really appreciate your support, all of your support tonight in all the ways you've done it. So I'm gonna mix these up, and let's see. Our first winner for the hand-painted platter is Amy Casey. So that's our first winner. So congratulations, Amy. So we will contact you about picking up the platter. And then our second prize here is a pitcher, also by Susan Scala, and the light is reflecting, I apologize. But it does have Keeler Tavern on the front, and then on the other side, it has a picture of the Gilbert fountain, which is very lovely here. So our second prize of the night goes to, I want to make sure it's all mixed up. Our second prize goes to Barbara Wyman. So congratulations, Barbara, on winning this lovely picture here. All right. And that brings us to the end of our live entertainment tonight at the gala. We really hope you enjoyed this special edition Tavern Tastings, and I hope you enjoy your lovely meals by Sarah and Bernard Boisseau. And part of our entertainment is a pre-recorded video culinary demonstration by Sarah and Bernard on how to prepare the short ribs entree, as well as the lime cheesecake. So if you did not get that package, that culinary demo, and you would like to, we are continuing to sell the tickets to that demo, and you can find that on our website. For an additional donation, we're happy to send that out to anybody who's interested. So I want to wish you all a good night. Thank you for supporting Keeler Tavern, and I hope you enjoy your cocktail.